Go ahead, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. We would like to start today's proceedings, and I would like to begin by requesting opening prayer to be led by Mr. John Wildman.
Representatives or invited guests, Mr. Chairman, members of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, ladies and gentlemen, I begin. Almighty God, we welcome you amongst us today and celebrate the gift of life that you have blessed upon each of us. We ask that you would open our ears so that we may hear your voice. Open our minds so that we may receive your eternal wisdom. Open our spirits so that we may know your lead and guidance. Thank you for every seat that has been filled here, for every mind and heart that fills the presence of this room. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish. Every project, every season, every life, nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Forgive us our pride, the pride that puffs us up and the pride that threatens to divide us. Strengthen our confidence in whom you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. Bless this meeting and all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterwards. Ready us to make every moment count. In your almighty name, amen.
Thank you, John. Let us now stand for the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago.
Please be seated.
Yeah, this is the Tobago for 2023. You stop fire. The Scrap and Dealers Association. Facing real problem. They say they're complaining and they're complaining. Nobody taking on them. They say they're doing clean-up operation. Plus sanitation. But they're not getting enough iron to maintain their occupation. They say they're taking youth men away off the street. We used to sit down wasting the time. So we create some real employment. Get them out of a life of crime. So when I see them truck and them passing, even they are far from the home, I can tell them truckers already. All the Tobago man, iron come, scrap iron, whole battery buying. On top the truck if you hear them fall, scrap iron, whole battery buying. Don't take those two galvanize and all, scrap iron, whole battery buying. Second hand on the way and over, scrap iron, whole battery buying. Petticoat and chain the wire. Scrap iron, whole battery buying. You could hear the truck from afar. Scrap iron, whole battery buying. Petticoat and marijuana. Yeah, man. Scrap iron anything. Well, you have. The Scrap and Dealers Association. What are we doing with the government? But every time they take a step forward, it goes in big argument. So I'm calling out all them trade union leaders.
Specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, to those of you viewing online on the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association Facebook page, good morning and welcome to the TTSIDA Stakeholders Symposium. The focus on today's symposium will be on the 2022 Scrap Metal Act and the industry as large. You have the opportunity to hear from a number of stakeholders and most importantly, have some of those questions answered. My name is Isa Mohammed.
And I am Nicole Duki.
And we will be your hosts for today's session as we discuss the movement of this industry from the formal, unregulated, the informal, unregulated economy to the formal, regulated economy. Truly an historic occasion.
Our first speaker this morning is one of our international partners, and he could not be here with us. However, he sent us a message via video. So if you can shift your attention to the projector and allow me to introduce Fabio Asilla, and he is of Magna Ridge Trinidad LDA.
Progress that has been made in promoting this critical activity, especially after a period of government-imposed ban on scrap metal exports. I would like to extend my appreciation to the Prime Minister and the Minister in charge for the efforts in promoting the recycling of scrap metal and lifting the ban. Their foresight and commitment to protecting the environment and preserving the natural resources are truly commendable. It is heartening to see that the government recognizes the importance of this industry and is taking steps to regulate it in a responsible and sustainable manner. This is a point I want to emphasize later, as I have been following the multiple interviews to Mr. Alan Ferguson, and I think it's essential to use technology and a more sophisticated method of regulating the industry. Of course, I also want to express my gratitude to the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Mr. Alan Ferguson, for his invaluable contributions to the industry. Your dedication and tireless efforts in advancing the cause of scrap metal recycling are truly inspiring. You have demonstrated that with hard work and perseverance, even the most challenging issues can be overcome. As you all know, scrap metal recycling is not only essential for the environment, but also for the economy. It reduces the amount of waste that ends up in landfills, conserves energy, and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Moreover, it generates revenue for the country and provides jobs for many citizens. While the ban of scrap metal exports may have caused some disruptions in the industry, it is crucial to remember that challenge can also present opportunities. With the lifting of the ban, Trinidad and Tobago can position itself as a leader in the global scrap metal market. By promoting sustainable practices and working with international partners, we can create a more responsible and profitable industry. It is essential to remember as well that the recycling of scrap metal is not just the responsibility of the industry leaders. It is a collective responsibility that we all share. We must all do our part to promote sustainability and reduce our impact on the environment. In conclusion, I would like to once again express my appreciation to the Prime Minister and the ministers in charge for their efforts in promoting scrap metal recycling and lifting the ban. And again, to Mr. Alan Ferguson for his invaluable contributions to the industry. Let us all work together to create a sustainable future for generations to come. Well, now regarding the point of regulating the industry, I think it's important to, as I mentioned before, to use technology in this matter. Internationally speaking, there is a method, and well-known method, that is, instead of using stickers or just a document that anyone can counterfeit, you can use a database, an online database, where the supplier and the buyer can register on that. So for example, if we have a QR code and a database managed by, I don't know if it's the Minister of Trade who is in charge of that, or the area in the government who's handling this matter, they should have a database that everyone can go online and check it. So as well as you manage the database for the people going into the country for the COVID-19 and all these databases that you have, same way you can register suppliers and buyers. So that means, for example, having a QR code with the name of the supplier, address, if it's a company, then the legal representative of that company. Then you have the telephone number, and all this information can be consulted via online. So when in this case, for example, Mr. Allen is trying to get material from one of the suppliers, he can just scan the QR code and immediately it goes directly to that database where it shows the name, address, telephone, company, even the date of incorporation of that company. And besides that, the supplier should register the trucks or the cars that he will use in order to move the material. For example, I don't know, if he's moving with 3 trucks, so each one comes with an identification. So if any suppliers try to move the material with a different truck that is registered, then it can create a red flag or something like, okay, you are not registering, you don't have registered that truck or car in the database. So in that way, it's easier to the scrap yards to get a better understanding and a better verification on the suppliers and the buyers as well. So it's not just a sticker, but a QR code that goes directly to a database, and you can verify all the information that the supplier or the buyer has registered on the database. So that's one way that that industry, internationally speaking, is one way that they use already. So I think that may help in order to get a better regulation on the industry. So again, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you all for the time. Have a great day.
A very good morning to everyone, all protocols being observed. So today, my job is to give you a summary of the act that has just been brought into force, right? So the objective of this presentation is to make you aware of the scrap iron deal, to make you all aware of the new legislation, right? And this means to detail the responsibilities and rights of the scrap metal collectors, scrap metal dealers, and site managers as under the newly proclaimed Act. In this presentation, we will explore the sections of the Act that are currently in force, and we will give a summary of the remainder of the Act which is not yet in force. So when we, yeah, you can go to the next one. So we want to look at the sections that were actually proclaimed. I'm not going to read out all of these sections, but in the second paragraph, you will see all of these sections that are actually law in this current moment, right? We would go through each of these sections. It is a lot to go through. I hope you bear with me, and I hope that you find it useful. I will try to go through it as quickly as I can. So we move to section 1 and 2. So section 1, it just gives you the name of the act, and it says that it will come into force, which it did. Section 2 is the interpretation section, and as we go through this presentation, I will give you those definitions as it arises. Section 3, it details that no person shall carry on the business of a scrap metal dealer unless he has previously obtained a scrap metal dealer's license under this Act. According to the Act, a scrap metal dealer is someone who owns and operates or proposes to own and operate a scrap metal site as a scrap metal dealer. Section 5.1, the minister shall have the power to grant, refuse, renew, vary, suspend, or revoke a scrap metal collector's license and a scrap metal dealer's license. 5.2, a license that was granted in the previous section may be granted, renewed, varied, or suspended by the minister subject to any conditions that the minister would require or considers necessary. Section 5.3, a person or entity may apply for and be granted more than one license issued by the minister under this Act. So this basically means that one person or business can hold multiple licenses at any given period of time. Section 5.4, the minister shall not issue a license retrospectively. So this means that the licenses cannot be issued after the fact or backdated. Section 5.5, a license shall not be granted in respect of a dwelling house. Now, a dwelling house is described as any premises, included any complementary outbuildings and adjacent land, which is used and occupied as a place of residence. So this means that if anyone lives on the premises, it cannot be used for these purposes. Section 5.6, a licensee shall comply with the conditions, requirements, or restrictions of his license. This means that whoever holds that license, they must at all times comply with the conditions, requirements, and restrictions as it applies to the particular license. Section 5.7, it shall be a condition of a license that the licensee consents to the entry of authorized officers on any scrap metal site specified in the license during working hours or such times as the premises are open to the public or otherwise in use by the licensee for the purpose of the exercise of their powers under this Act. This means that the person holding the license must agree to have these authorized agents or officers enter the premises of any scrap metal site as the authorities see fit. So now we want to look at who are these authorized officers. They can be a police officer, a constable appointed under the Supplemental Police Act, a public health inspector of a corporation, an environmental officer of the EMA, or a scrap metal inspector. This means that any of these people can enter the scrap metal site at any time to conduct any rights given to them under this act. So we look now at what is a scrap metal site. So this means that any premises listed in a scrap metal dealer's license where the business of dealing in scrap metal is undertaken, and this also will include, for the purposes of this act, an unlicensed site. This means that any site on which the scrap metal business is being done, these authorized agents have the ability to enter the premises to exercise the powers as given under the Act. And this is regardless of if it is registered or not. Section 5(8), where the minister grants a license, he shall, within 21 days of his decision, cause the supervisory authority to be informed in writing of his decision. So this supervisory authority refers to the Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU. Section 9(b), (d), and (e). So the minister may revoke the license granted under this act where the licensee is no longer operating within any conditions, restrictions, or requirements subject to which the license was granted. The licensee has been convicted of an offense involving fraud or dishonesty, or where the licensee is conducting his business in breach of any of the prescribed conditions. So in all of these instances, the minister can revoke the license under this act. Section 17(1), we look at the conduct of business by a scrap metal dealer. So no person shall carry on the business of a scrap metal site unless he obtains a scrap metal dealer's license, right? This means that you must have the license before you can run a scrap metal site. 17(3), a scrap metal dealer who holds a scrap metal dealer's license shall display in a prominent place in an area accessible to the public at each scrap metal site identified in the license, a copy of that license, and over the principal entrances to the sites, there has to be a sign, legibly printed letters at least 2 inches in length, the name of the full person holding the license, and the words "license scrap metal site." So this sign must be on the premises in a place where everyone who is coming to the premises can see it very easily. Section 17(4) and 5, a person carries on business as a scrap metal dealer if the person carries on a business which consists wholly or partly in buying or selling scrap metal, whether or not the metal is sold in the form in which it was born. For the purpose of subsection 4, a person who manufactures articles is not to be regarded as selling scrap metal if that person sells scrap metal only as a byproduct of manufacturing articles or as a surplus material not required for manufacturing them. So once you are buying and selling scrap metal in any way, you will be considered a scrap metal dealer under the Act, unless the products that you are selling are only byproducts or excess from the manufacturing of other products. Section 18(1), no person shall purchase or receive scrap metal except between the hours of 7 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening. Right? So this is, I'm not going to read out the whole section. This is, I have a summary of it next. So basically between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., you cannot purchase or receive the scrap metal. You cannot sort, pack, or load any scrap metal at any scrap metal site during these hours. You also cannot transact any scrap metal business with anyone under the age of 18 if they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Section 18.3, the loading of scrap metal into freight containers shall only be done at a scrap metal site listed in a scrap metal dealer's license. So this means that you cannot load any scrap metal into freight containers on any site that is not listed. Section 19.1 and 2, subject to subsection 2, scrap metal purchased or received by a licensed scrap metal dealer shall be kept in a scrap metal site and shall not be in any way changed in form or shape or disfigured, used, sold, loaned, or otherwise disposed of from the site for a period of 15 days after the scrap metal has been purchased or received. The minister, on an application by scrap metal dealer, may grant the dealer a permit for the shipment or alteration in form or shape of any such scrap metal without the same having been kept for such period of 15 days, or for the shipment of broken machinery direct from the place where the same is purchased. Right, so summary of that section. Once a licensed scrap metal dealer has received scrap metal, this scrap metal must be untouched for 15 days. It means that the scrap metal cannot be changed, used, sold, loaned, or disposed of in any manner within 15 days. If you would like to ship or alter the scrap metal within that 15-day period, you must apply for a permit to do this, and that permit must be granted by the minister. You must also apply for and obtain a permit from the minister to ship broken machinery directly from the place where it was purchased. Section 21. A scrap metal dealer shall keep an accurate and legible record of scrap metal that is stored, received, and disposed at his scrap metal site. A scrap metal collector shall keep an accurate and legible record of scrap metal that is purchased or received during the course of his business as a scrap metal collector. The record of a transaction referred to in this section may be in written or electronic form. This means that both the scrap metal dealer and the scrap metal collector must write down details of all scrap metal coming in and out of their business. This record can be either handwritten or recorded on a computer. Section 21.4. The scrap metal dealer shall make a record of the transaction that he makes with a person at the time of the transaction, and the record shall include the following information. So we're looking at the name, the address, the age of the person from whom the scrap metal is received, as evidenced by a valid passport, driver's permit, or national identification card. Other details of the person from whom the scrap metal is received, including the person's date of birth, gender, race, eye color, hair color, distinguishing marks, residential address, telephone number, where applicable, if it's a business, the business address, telephone number of the business. A copy of the person's identification as evidenced by a valid passport, driver's permit, or national identification card. So, as just a note, the scrap metal dealer is required to take this information from a valid identification document for the persons with whom he is transacting. The validity of these documents refer to ensuring that the documents are not expired, and the Act does not expect you to determine whether or not the identification document itself is fraudulent or not. However, if you do have reason to believe that these documents are fraudulent, you should report it to the authorities. Section 21.4, and this continues with what the scrap metal dealer must record. A description of the scrap metal, including any serial number, unique identification marks, including numbers, letters, engravings, patterns, weight, brand name, model number, color, size, weight, type, and number of each item. The date and time and place of receipt of the scrap metal. The price of the scrap metal, if it has been ascertained at that point in time. The vehicle registration number of any motor vehicle or goods vehicle used to deliver the scrap metal. If a person other than the seller delivers the scrap metal to the scrap metal dealer, the name, address, and age of the person who is delivering the material has to be recorded as well. You would need to get a statement of ownership that is signed and dated by the person who is delivering the scrap metal. Section 21.5. The scrap metal dealer, for tax purposes, shall also keep records of reconciliations of daily cash balances, which include the amounts used to purchase the scrap metal, copies of all checks issued and received, and any monetary advancements that you would make to suppliers. 21.6. Where a scrap metal dealer receives a motor vehicle as scrap metal, he shall keep a record of the following information. So you would have to detail the vehicle registration number, the vehicle engine and chassis number, the make, the model, and the color of the vehicle. The general condition of the vehicle at the time of sale, including whether the vehicle is damaged in any way, and if so, what the damage was caused by. The name, address, age, and contact details of the supplier of the vehicle. Details of any proof of identity as evidenced by a valid passport, driver's permit, or national identification card. Section 23.1. No person shall export scrap metal unless he obtains a license from the minister under the Trade Ordinance of 1958. So in order to be able to export scrap metal, you must have this license to do so. Section 24. A person who exports scrap metal shall give at least 7 days written notice to the minister and to the commissioner of police of his intention to load the scrap metal for export. The written notice shall specify the location of the scrap metal site and the time of the loading of the scrap metal into the freight container. Where a notice is given under subsection 1, the minister and the commissioner of police shall ensure the relevant officers are present at the scrap metal site to conduct inspections while the scrap metal is being loaded. The loading of the freight container for export of scrap metal shall be done only at a scrap metal site specified in the license of a licensed scrap metal dealer. Section 24.6. Scrap metal in a scrap metal site may be held for 5 days for viewing by any member of the public, and the licensed exporter, upon written notice from any member of the public, shall afford that person a reasonable opportunity to view the scrap metal before loading it for export. So this means that the scrap metal intended to be exported must be held for 5 days at the scrap metal site when any person writes to a licensed exporter requesting to view the scrap metal before loading it for export. Section 25. An authorized officer can enter any scrap metal site specified in a scrap metal dealer's license to exercise his powers under this act, including the inspection and other examinations to ensure compliance with the act and any applicable conditions, requirements, or restrictions of a scrap metal dealer's license. Authorized officers can use force to exercise their powers under this act if it becomes necessary to do so. So we remember from before, the authorized officers can mean the police officers, constable appointed under the Supplemental Police Act, public health inspector of a corporation, environmental officer, or a scrap metal inspector. Section 25.4. Inspection of the premises. A scrap metal site falls within this section if it is a site listed in the scrap metal dealer's license, or where the site is not specified within a license, but there is reasonable grounds to believe that the site is being used by a scrap metal dealer in the course of dealing in the business of scrap metal. Section 25.5. The licensee or his representative, the site manager, the person who is in charge person whose custody or charge is scrap metal dealer's records and scrap metal may be, or the person who has made any entry in the scrap metal dealer's records with respect to which the authorized officer may desire to ask any questions shall permit the authorized officer to enter the scrap metal site and inspect the scrap metal dealer's records and all scrap metal, and shall answer any questions as may be asked by the authorized officer with reference to the scrap metal dealer's records and any entries contained in those records. 25.6, continuing with the inspection of the premises, an authorized officer may enter a scrap metal site when open for business and inspect any motor vehicle or goods vehicle or container or any other vessel which is used or intended to be used for the storage or the transportation of scrap metal. Section 25.7, where a magistrate is satisfied by information or oath given by a police officer that there are reasonable grounds for believing that an offense under this act has been or is about to be committed in any dwelling house, he may issue a warrant authorizing the police officer to A, enter at any time within 1 month from the date of the warrant, the place named in the warrant with force if necessary, and inspect that place. B, to detain a person found in that place in respect of whom there is a reasonable suspicion regarding the commission of an offense under this act, or to seize anything which may be of evidential value for the prosecution of an offense under this act or any other written law. Section 26, where a police officer reasonably suspects that a person has in his possession any scrap metal of which he is not the lawful owner or is lawfully entitled to possess, the police officer may stop and search that person. Where the police officer finds the person to be in possession of any scrap metal and reasonably believes that the person is not a lawful owner or is not lawfully entitled to be in possession of that metal, the police officer shall arrest and take the person to the nearest police station and seize the scrap metal for investigation. A police officer may arrest a scrap metal collector or a scrap metal dealer who fails to produce any prescribed record for inspection in relation to scrap metal in his possession and seize the scrap metal for investigation. Section 35, where under this act a period of time is specified for the doing of anything, the minister may, by order, vary that period. So this means that even though the act has stipulated certain time frames that we would have gone through, the minister is able to change that time period where he sees fit. Section 36, and this refers to appeal. So where a person feels that the decision of the minister is not something that they agree with, they are able to file an appeal against that decision in the High Court. And you have 30 days for this to be done. Section 37, where a person licensed under this act is convicted of an offense under this act, the court may revoke or suspend the license of the person. Where the court makes an order for the revocation or suspension of a license in accordance with this section, the court shall cause a notice of the revocation or suspension of the license to be published in the Gazette and in at least one daily newspaper circulated in Trinidad and Tobago, and immediately forward to the minister, the supervisory authority, and the commissioner of police a copy of the order. The minister shall retain a copy of this order as part of the records and immediately cause a notation to be made in the appropriate register. Section 38, any reference in any written law to the Old Metal and Marine Stores Act shall be referred to as a reference to the Scrap Metal Act of 2022. Section 39, this is the transitional provision. It states that any license issued under the Old Metal and Marine Stores Act, which is valid immediately before the 31st of December of 2022, shall, upon compliance with subsection 2, by the holder of the license, be deemed to be a scrap metal dealer's license under this act until the 14th of April of 2023, or such later date as the minister may by order determine. The license holder must submit a declaration to the minister in the prescribed form in the second schedule of this act, stating that he consents to the entry of authorized officers on his scrap metal site during the working hours or any such time as the scrap metal site is open to the public or otherwise in use by him. This means that if you have a license that was valid before the 31st of December 2022, then it is currently valid once you've submitted that declaration, allowing the officers to visit the scrap metal site. This license will be valid until the 14th of April 2023. The minister does have the ability to extend this date. Section 40 deals with regulations, so the minister may make regulations to provide for any matter and to give purpose to this act. Section 41, this section means that the Old Metal and Marine Stores Act is no longer enforced and does not form part of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. The Scrap Metal Act of 2022 has taken its place. Right, so now the Act lists 20 specific offenses. I'm not going to go through all. It's there in the Act. I have detailed 4 here just to give you an example and an idea of what the offenses look like. So the first 4, knowingly giving false information on application for a license. On summary conviction, someone will be liable for a fine of $250,000 and imprisonment for 1 year. On conviction on indictment, you would be liable for a fine of $500,000 and imprisonment for 2 years. Another offense is carrying out scrap metal collector business without a license or having to fail to notify the minister of any alterations of particulars, or you are found in breach of the particulars of the business that you have been licensed for. The fine on summary conviction is $250,000 or imprisonment for 2 years. On conviction on indictment, fine of $500,000 or imprisonment for 3 years. Right, so I wouldn't go through the other 2, but this is the type of fines and repercussions you're looking at, and the types of offenses that are listed in the Act. Now, I'm just going to give a brief summary of the pending legislation. Now, as I said before, the entirety of this Act is not enforced at the moment. So when you read the Act, you're going to see sections that are not currently law. So some of those things would be, and these things would be coming into force at some point in the future, right? So a list of those things would be the application process to get the license, refusal to grant the license, renewal of license, variation of license, suspension of license, representation in case of refusal, non-refusal, or revocation of the license, notice of decision, non-transferability of the license, restriction on transportation of scrap metal, conduct of business by a scrap metal collector, change of business premises, retention of records, designation of scrap metal inspector, duties of scrap metal inspector, registers of licenses, custody of and access to these registers, management of registers, notification of change of information, and administrative fines. So all of these things are not yet in force and may soon come into force. So in conclusion, this has been the summary of the sections of the Scrap Metal Act which are currently in force. The sections that have not that we have not discussed are not currently law as it stands today. But those provisions can be made law at any time upon a proclamation by the President. I hope that this presentation was successful in assisting you to understand the current laws in relation to the Scrap Metal Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ali, for your very informative presentation. And those were just some of the points that are stated in the Scrap Metal Act 2022. Now, if you wish to get a copy, it is available for download online. At this time, I would like to welcome Mr. Garland Samuel of the Crime Stoppers Group to address you.
Hello, good morning all. Thank you all very much. Thanks the Scrap Iron Association for the invitation for Crime Stoppers to be a part of this stakeholders meeting this morning. I met with Mr. Ferguson sometime last week, he and his team, and we had some very interesting and energetic discussions. So Mr. Ferguson, thank you very much for affording Crime Stoppers the opportunity to share in this session here this morning. When Mr. Ferguson invited me to meet with him to chat a little bit about the stakeholders meeting, I said, but why you want Crime Stoppers there, boy? He said, listen, we're dealing with the entirety of this scrap iron. No, he didn't use these exact words, right? We're dealing with the entirety of this scrap iron industry. And what we're interested in is partnerships. And he said before in some other forum, if people who are knowledgeable of other people involved in any kind of dubious activities, he is not supporting them, and he wants them reported, and he wants some action to be taken against them. So he says he feels Crime Stoppers is a good partner to come and share the work of Crime Stoppers. So I listened to Ms. Ali, and it was extremely good information, because we live every day and life is so exciting that you learn something new every day, right? And we're hearing about scrap iron, we're hearing about these guys, we're hearing these guys passing in our neighborhood and collecting scrap iron and so on. We're hearing about it from all different angles. And to hear this scrap iron and to listen to Ms. Ali speak this morning about the parts of the Act of 2022 that have been proclaimed and the parts that have not yet been proclaimed and so on, that is real knowledge for me, and I'm very glad that I heard her presentation. And I can leave right now knowing that my day was, my morning or my hour was well spent, because I received so much knowledge. But if I leave right now, somebody might beat me with a piece of iron. I say, the man invited you to talk about Crime Stoppers, and you just listen and you leave, boy. So I want to share with you this morning a summary of Crime Stoppers. And although we are not into scrap iron, how we can fit in to this whole scrap iron industry. And when I'm speaking as well, I may make reference to some things about scrap iron. But be aware that when we talk about Crime Stoppers, we talk about any kind of offense, any kind of suspicion you have about any kind of activity in Trinidad and Tobago and even beyond. Because Crime Stoppers is international. So when we talk about Crime Stoppers, everybody know Crime Stoppers and 800 tips. Crime Stoppers, 800 tips. You can call 800 tips and you can report any kind of criminal activity. But let me give you a little bit about the history of Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is an international organization that was started in 1976. That is how many years ago? I don't think many of you in this audience was born in 1976. I was already a little fella in 1976, right? It was started in... I didn't do that, right? It was started in 1976. There was a young university student, a 21-year-old university student by the name of Michael Carman. Michael Carman was in university. He was 3 months away from graduating. And he was assisting... Many of us, when we go to university, sometimes we have to help our parents. Our parents send us to university, you know. So we had to do a little work here and a little work here to make some money so we could help mommy and daddy pay the rent when we go to university and that kind of thing, right? So Michael Carman was doing a night shift at a gas station in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Two guys came to rob that gas station. They robbed the gas station, and in doing that, they shot Michael Carman, and Michael Carman died. It pulled the heartstrings of the folks in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the police officers were trying to get information concerning this senseless murder. Right? We hear about senseless murders are in Trinidad today. It's not only here, and it's not only now, right? This senseless murder of Michael Carman. The police, all they're trying to do, trying to get information, got absolutely nowhere. Then one officer decided what he would do, he would put a reward out. He would put a phone number, ask people to call this number. They don't have to give their name, they don't have to give any information. And all they have to do is say what they know about this particular offense. And if the information they provide is relevant and it assists in solving this particular offense, they would get a reward. So he put out the number, ran the ad on television, and within 48 hours, they were able to arrest two guys who subsequently were charged and arrested and sentenced for that murder. One guy called the number and he said, you know what? I remember the night when that happened. Now, I don't know what the night was, right? But if you think about your own life, there are some significant points in your own life. You know, those of you married, you might remember the first night you took your girlfriend somewhere. Who is your wife now, right? Remember that night, and you were by the gas station. This fellow say he was passing by the gas station, and he heard two loud explosions. And all he saw is a car driving off at top speed. And he know the car. The car is from the town neck, the town adjacent town. That is all the information that was needed. The police then did the investigations. They interviewed those guys, and whatever the police do that we don't know about, that the police do best, they investigate and so on. The police was able to solve that murder and arrest two guys, and they went to court and they were convicted. What that shows is that information about criminal activity is resident right in our communities. You have information that of some kind of suspicion, I have information about some kind of suspicion, and sometimes all you need is some kind of encouragement to provide the information. So that was the birth of Crime Stoppers in 1976. 23 years later, in 1999, Crime Stoppers Trinidad and Tobago was born. So I am a part of Crime Stoppers Trinidad and Tobago. Crime Stoppers Trinidad and Tobago started out of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber. So we are really a business organization that it's an NGO, and we are represented on our board by members of the business community. So we have representation from ATIC, the Association of Trinidad and Tobago Insurance Companies. We have representation from the Chaguanas Chamber, the Couva Chamber, the Tobago House of Assembly, the Trinidad Chamber already, the Small Contractors Association. So we have that kind of representation. It's a non-government organization. It's a non-police organization, so we have no police on the board and so on. We have no police working with us. And the role of Crime Stoppers is simple. We recognize at Crime Stoppers that when people have information about any kind of suspicious activity or any kind of criminal activity, they can do two things. The first thing they can do, if you have any kind of information, the first thing you can do is do absolutely nothing. You say, you see me? I am involved in that. What you would do, you would take your house, pour your children inside, put 2 dogs inside and so on, build a big fence around, right? Put some cameras, your CCTV cameras up and so on, and you would say, my family, good. What happened out there, that is them fellas' business, that is them girls' business. I ain't interested in that. So you could do absolutely nothing. When you do absolutely nothing, what happens? It then provides the people who are involved in these suspicious activities, it then allows them the comfort and the confidence to continue the nefarious activities if they are involved in nefarious activities. In other words, they could form a little, I don't know if you all ever heard this story about the fella. I'm from San Fernando, right? The fella from Library Corner now. He was begging with one hand and thing. They make a pass, You see my library corner, he begging, give a boy a $5 now, give a boy a $1 now, give a boy a 50 cents now. 50 cents, so he made bill now. Somebody make a pass and then he fella begging with 2 hands now, give a boy a $5. He say, well, what happened boy? I was begging with 1 hand about half an hour ago. Now you're begging with 2 hands. He say, boy, business good, boy. I open my branch, you know. So that's what has happened. Yeah, that's an old joke, right? You probably heard it already. I talked it, right? 25 years ago. So that is what has happened when you do nothing, right? When you do nothing, it's because them fellas realize business going good. So they open a branch. They call their cousin, they call their partner, they say, boy, we're doing all kind of things in this area and nothing happening. So that's the first thing you could do. The second thing you could do if you know about any kind of suspicious activities that you suspect people involved in illegal activities, the second thing you could do is report it to the police, which is the correct thing to do. Report it to the police, you call the police, you say, listen, something is happening here, I'm not comfortable with it, you all need to check it out. The police could come and check it out, and the police say, yeah, boy, something really happened there, yes? Then the police would say, listen, we need some more information. We want you to come as a witness. You know, and then at that point in time, you start a backpack. You say, see me? I don't want to go by no witness. I don't want to go and give any statement to the police because the people involved in that, they start to threaten my family and all that kind of thing, right? So, I mean, those are legitimate fears. So that is the second thing that could happen. So you don't want to go to court as a witness, you don't want to give a statement to the police, but something inside is telling you, you know what, I have to report this thing, you know. What Crime Stoppers does is we allow you the third option that I want to talk about this morning. The third option is where you can report things to the police through Crime Stoppers. What you do, what Crime Stoppers does is we give you an anonymous number, 800 tips. That is 800-8477. You can call that number 24 hours a day, 364 364 days, a year, how many days? 365. 365 and a quarter days, or 366 days in a leap year, from morning to night, 24 hours. You call that number, somebody answers, and all Crime Stoppers want is the information. So all you do is you call, you give us the information, you hang up the phone, and that's it. I call Crime Stoppers a courier of tips. So what would happen? We take the information and we give the information to the police. We don't investigate the information. We have no resources to do that. We don't do anything else with the information. All we do, take the information, give the information to the police, and the police will do their own investigations and so on. In that way, we don't know who you are. So the police can't call you to be any witness or call you to do anything. That is basically what you're doing when you call Crime Stoppers. You give us information, we take the information and give it to the police. Now, the call to Crime Stoppers is a free call. And because it's a free call, people still calling Crime Stoppers and asking for doubles with slide pepper. Crime Stoppers, yeah, give me a doubles with slide pepper now. You know, sometimes I really wish we trace these calls, right? But we don't have doubles with slide pepper, and we encourage people to call the number for serious issues and so on, right? So that is one way you can call and deal with suspicious activities that you're uncomfortable with. The other way through Crime Stoppers is through our app. CrimeStoppersTT.com allows you to use the P3 app where you can report information to Crime Stoppers online. Everybody has a smart device, everybody has a phone, everybody has a laptop, a tablet that they're using. You go to CrimeStoppersTT.com and there's an app there that allows you to report and you also remain anonymous. Crime Stoppers pays up to $10,000, that is TT. People say, boy, die 10,000 US, boy, I need some US. No, we pay up to 10,000 TT for information that is successful. When we speak about successful information, we don't necessarily speak about people being convicted and so on. There's a whole different process. When the police do the investigations, they then take people to the court and then the judicial process kicks in. We're not responsible for that. Once your information is good enough, we can then pay you up to $10,000, of course, depending on the type of offense that is reported and that the police has acted upon and so on. How do we pay this? How do we pay this $10,000? Or up to $10,000, I should say. Anytime you call Crime Stoppers or you send a tip online, you would get, let's say, a PIN. It's a confidential PIN that you alone keep. You alone know this PIN. Once you call back and you say, listen, the information that I've provided, I want some follow-up on it and I want some information, and we say it's good information, the police acted on it and it was successful, you tell us what branch of the bank you want to collect. We deal with Scotiabank. What branch of Scotiabank you want to collect your reward. You take this confidential PIN, go into the bank, ask the operations manager. Let's say your PIN is 1234 or ABCD. You ask the operations manager, you say my number is ABCD, and the operations manager give you an envelope with cash in it. It has worked for us since 1999, and we trust God that it will continue to work. People have not been able to be identified. We tell people, if they go to the bank, because sometimes it happens, we go to the bank, and the bank says, what is your name? We tell them at that point in time, what they need to do is to immediately leave the bank and call us, so we'll contact the bank again. Because, of course, staff would change at the bank, and many times the bank are thinking about Crime Stoppers to tell new staff about this thing if somebody comes for the operations manager. So we tell people, as long as they ask you for your name or your ID card or anything, don't worry with that, because Crime Stoppers is anonymous. We've been doing this since 1999, and it has been working very well, okay? So we talk about Crime Stoppers. What has the results been for Crime Stoppers since we've been operating? Every month we do our statistics and so on. Crime Stoppers has received more than 600,000 calls since we've been operating. We've caused to be arrested about 1,800 persons with anonymous tips coming to Crime Stoppers. We've caused to be recovered more than $26 million in stolen property. So sometimes you would see, these little WhatsApp videos and these TikTok videos and so on. They show a man breaking up place and thieving jewelry and all that kind of thing. And then here police hold somebody. Sometimes is a Crime Stoppers tip that caused that. What you would hear in the newspaper is that police acting on information received or police acting on a tip received was able to do so and so and so and so. Sometimes you see the police, the police and fellas, my partner from in front here, see his hat there, right? Posing and thing, posing and say, police recovered these guns and so on, look at these guns that the police recovered, right? And congratulations to the police. A lot of times there's a Crime Stoppers tip, right? But Crime Stoppers will never say that information came from them, because we want to ensure that people could not be identified in any way with providing a tip to Crime Stoppers. So far, Crime Stoppers has, tips to Crime Stoppers has been able to allow the police to recover 299 million, 600 and something thousand. So I say 300 million to make it easy. $300 million worth of drugs. And all that has been recovered without the identity of any person being known. So that's what Crime Stoppers has been doing. That's how Crime Stoppers operate in the summary. So in terms of the scrap iron dealers, I was listening to Ms. Ali. It seems as though, as far as the scrap iron industry is concerned, if, for example, you are living somewhere, right? And for example, I see my neighbor begin to have mounds and mounds of scrap iron and so on. Obviously, that would be an unlicensed site, because it seems as though from the information Mr. Ali gave us, you are not allowed to store all this scrap iron and have a site by a dwelling house. You're not supposed to be living in the same place that your scrap iron business taking place. So as far as the scrap iron is concerned, if you see that happening, and you want to report it, but you don't want to be identified, that is something that can be reported. It seems as though, as well, if you have your license to operate and so on, and you are aware of the conditions of a scrap iron license, and you see somebody operating outside of the license, and it's something that you're uncomfortable with and you want to report, and you don't want to go in court as a witness, or you don't want to give a statement to the police, you can call Crime Stoppers, 800-TIPS, online crimestopperstt.com, and you can report it. So that is as far as, and of course there are other areas and so on. But at Crime Stoppers, you can report any kind of offense, any kind of suspicion. The whole area of illicit trade, transnational crime and so on. And we're talking about those things again. So you have illicit cigarettes, right? You have illicit alcohol. You have offenses related to shoes and these kinds of things, illicit items of clothing and so on. All those things can be reported to Crime Stoppers. So, in a nutshell, if you want to report something, but you don't want anybody to know who reported it, Crime Stoppers is an avenue that allows you to do that safely, comfortably, without any repercussions for you, without any repercussions for your family. And we are here. We are here to share about our operations. And if there is any way you feel that in your own industry there is room for using the services of Crime Stoppers, or you want us to come in your area and give a presentation about what we do, we are quite free to do that. So once again, we'd like to thank you all very much for the opportunity to be able to share at this forum, and we'd like to wish you all continued success as you move forward in this important area, and in the way you are approaching it is extremely commendable. So thank you all very much for the opportunity this morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. I mean, not only for the very interesting information about the history of Crime Stoppers and its performance, but particularly how it could be applied in terms of the new regulation in the scrap iron industry, both for members of the public and for members within the association to ensure that they manage their affairs well. I do have one announcement to make, and that is driver of vehicle PCA 4465. You are requested to attend to your vehicle immediately, PCA 4465. So moving on with the program very quickly, it is my great honor to invite Miss, I want to pronounce this properly, Miss Zoba Samuel Cupid to bring greetings on behalf of Guardian Life of the Caribbean Limited. Please welcome her warmly. Thank you.
I would like to say a pleasant good morning to each and everyone present. Firstly, let me say a pleasant good morning to the members of the head table, the president of TT CEDA, the esteemed members of the panel, and to all specially invited guests. As introduced, my name is Zoba Samuel Cupid of Guardian Life of the Caribbean under the Dale McLeod Agency. I operate out of the Tobago RSC Center. It is evident that pollution is one of the great negatives that affect the world and has been actively fighting, we have all been actively fighting to eradicate over the past decades. This has led to negative effects we feel and see today through climate change, which is affecting our quality of life daily. Example, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the environment we socialize in. It is on this note that each stakeholder present today, including myself, do our part to ensure the success of recycling industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Through this effort, we can continue to boast of being clean, green, safe, and serene. In accordance with our slogan at Guardian, which was established in Trinidad and Tobago in 1982, life is easier when we take the time to make each other stronger. At Guardian, our mission is to lead the world in creating financial freedom for you in good times and in bad through positive interactions powered by technology. However, this will not be achieved if our population is not healthy. And as we know, our health is our wealth and the key to any successful endeavor. As a life guardian, it is my mission and passion to ensure that each citizen has an opportunity at financial freedom, adequate life, health, and critical illness coverage, and the ability to create a reserve for their next generation to come. When we speak quality of life, we envision excellent healthcare, the ability to financially maintain our lifestyles, taking care of our loved ones, enjoying retirement, and the list goes on and on. And this is possible through Guardian as we provide a buffet of options and financial solutions for groups and individual needs. I wish to thank the TT CEDA for inviting me to this event, as it shows their eagerness and interest in taking the necessary steps toward providing health, life, and pension coverage for their workers who are actively on the front line, assisting in providing a safe and clean environment. Insurance is like a parachute. You need to have it before you need it. Otherwise, you may be too late. You can only live once. Let's decide how we live now and the legacy we wish to use to create the future for our generations to come. And in saying this, I want to really applaud TT CEDA after listening to all the different methods that they are implementing to ensure that there is an efficient running of their operations, to ensure that all the different dealers are having a successful operation and is not infringing or breaching the laws. And I always admire what they do, because recycling is something we talk about. It's all a wee business, but it's only a few who takes up the baton and run with it. So in being here today, I want to congratulate TT CEDA. I want to congratulate Mr. Ferguson on taking this step and inviting all the necessary stakeholders, and to assure that in my capacity, I will do the best in my ability to ensure that while they are out there at work risking their lives, to ensure that we have a clean environment, that they also have the coverage needed and provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cupid. Up next, we have someone who has been supporting the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association for many years. Someone who is never afraid to speak for and behalf of the scrap metal industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Let us now welcome the leader of the movement for social justice, Mr. David Abdullah, to the podium.
Thank you very much, Nicole. A very good morning. Very special good morning to my friend and brother, Alan Ferguson, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Vice President of TT CEDA, other executive members, other members of the podium, sisters and brothers. A very good morning to all. Salam alaikum. First, I want to say that for the last 2.5 years, starting right here in this hall, I've been engaged in solidarity with Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, having been invited to speak at a forum by Brother Ferguson. And so it is my pleasure to be here this morning. I want to congratulate CEDA for organizing this symposium, and to say that Brother Alan Ferguson is a very visionary leader to bring together people, different stakeholders in this way to discuss this legislation and the state of the industry, and not only current state, but the future as well. And I want to congratulate him personally. I'm going to speak this morning as someone who I think I could consider myself as a political economist, but also as someone who has sat in the Senate and therefore being involved in passing laws, reviewing legislation, and as a former trade unionist, critiquing legislation, and also having served on the advisory committee to the Rules Committee appointed by then Chief Justice Michael de la Bastide to consider, recommend, and amend the draft civil proceedings rules that were about to be effected. I think it was probably 20 odd years ago, late 1990s, if my memory serves me right. So I've been involved in, though I'm not a lawyer, my daughter is, I've been involved in looking at laws from very many perspectives. So my first point would be economic, and then I'm going to say a few things about the draft legislation. I want to thank Ms. Ali for an excellent presentation this morning. So it is now well known in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is because of Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, that the scrap metals industry is a very important industry in terms of its value, not only locally but globally. Billions of dollars worth of scrap metals are processed each year. And here in Trinidad and Tobago, it has grown into a multi-million-dollar industry with the potential to grow even larger than that. So it's very, very important and large and significant in economic terms. Secondly, for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, it is very important because it earns foreign exchange. It is a net foreign exchange earner. Everything that is exported may have been imported at one time, perhaps, but the industry itself is an exporter and earning foreign exchange. And given Trinidad and Tobago's economic situation, foreign exchange is very vital to our well-being, and particularly in the context of the concept of economic diversification, where we don't want to depend purely on the hydrocarbon sector. Thirdly, it is important in terms of employment creation, and in a situation where jobs are being lost or destroyed by retrenchment and company closures, from Unilever to Petrotrin and so on and so on and so on. Atlantic LNG is going to retrench workers. We are in a situation where employment creation is extremely important for the economic well-being, because more people employed, more people buy, what is known as the multiplier effect. People have money, they buy, whether it is insurance or they buy from a parlor. They could have money to pay the taxi or maxi driver to take their children to school. They buy school books. All of that, it comes from economic activity turning around, and therefore employment and growing and stabilizing employment is very, very important. And this industry, not only in terms of the total numbers of people employed, but the fact that many people, particularly the van collectors and those who work at the scrap yards and so on, many of them may not find employment elsewhere for all different kinds of reasons, whether they don't have the academic qualifications, so-called qualifications, whether they may have had a life that previously got them into some difficulty with the law and therefore would be precluded from getting another job, whether they live in the wrong part of the country. Because you know, if you live in certain parts of this country and you apply for a job, you're not likely to get it simply because of where you come from. So this industry not only creates jobs, but it also creates jobs for those who may not get jobs otherwise. So employment is a third important factor. Another one, and we have heard it, is the environmental impact. That and the flooding recently that we have had last year, I don't think there were any images of rivers that were flooded, that were blocked because of an old car, old fridge, old stove, washing machine. I didn't see any. You saw logs and bottles and other stuff, but you didn't see what we used to see 5, 10 years ago of things that used to block our water courses. So there's an important environmental impact. The industry is sustainable because waste is constantly produced. We don't have washing machines or dryers. I had a dryer that we had to get rid of the other day. I had it for 30 years. But they don't make dryers like that anymore. Everything now is built in obsolescence so that the manufacturers and producers of these things will continue to manufacture and produce for us to buy and buy and buy. And therefore, this industry is sustainable because there'll constantly be metal waste being produced. So all of those reasons in terms of the economy. Let me now look at, well, there's one, yes, at some of the legal issues, and thanks, Ms. Ali, for your presentation. I find that the law is overly detailed. Now, in lawmaking, there is something called the parent law, which is a substantive act itself, Act number whatever of 2022. That's the parent act. And then there are regulations, and as we heard at the very end of the presentations, the law, as nearly all laws have, well not all, but many of laws passed where you're regulating something, there is provision, the minister may make regulations in furtherance of the act. And a lot of the details tend to be found in the regulations and not embedded in the parent act. The reason being, for example, a lot of details specified. You need to have ID card or this and that and this and that and address and so on and so on and so on. Now, if you want to amend any of that, the minister will have to go back to the parliament with a bill to amend section whatever, to amend the wording. To even remove one word, you have to go back to parliament to amend that. Whereas if some of the details are put in the regulations, the minister, by negative resolution of parliament, what does that mean? Simply means that the minister lays the amendment in the parliament. If nobody moves a motion subsequently to have that amendment voted against, then the amended resolution stands. And therefore, it is a very quick and easy way to bring into effect details that support in regulations the Parent Act. And I found, that's my view, so I'm not a lawyer, Ms. Ali may want to respond to that, but as someone who sat in the Senate and was involved in lawmaking and seen other legislation drafted, it is sometimes wiser for the drafters of legislation to draft legislation in a more general way and put some of the details in the regulations because those details could be more easily amended. So that's one comment that I wish to make about the legislation. Of course, the legislation is already passed, but that's just one comment I want to make about the legislation. The other thing that I want to say is that there are some areas where there could be some gaps. For example, Ministry of Local Government, I don't know if they're represented here, and Rural Development, through the corporations, send vehicles out to collect bulk waste because the garbage trucks don't collect branches and stuff like that. Suppose I decide to put out something as bulk waste to be collected, which has metal in it, and the truck picks it up. Because if they don't, as a resident, I might quarrel. Why you didn't pick that up? And the driver of the bulk waste truck may have no clue about this legislation because they're not concerned about it. And they then pick it up, and that gets dumped wherever it gets dumped in one of the waste management sites. And somebody then collects that item. How are you going to track ownership, original ownership of that piece of metal back to whoever put that out as bulk waste? So there's what is known as in law lacunas, which are gaps. I've just identified one off the top of my head. I might be wrong. But these are things you see where this kind of consultation and discussion would have helped to, had it happened well before the passage of the legislation, would have helped to shape some of the legislation and some of the regulations, because those things could be picked up in what is known as lacunas and so on. Now, the other issue, and I don't want to spend too much time, is that some of the timelines and the requirements. So you want to ship, export, or a dealer wants to export, has to provide the minister 15 days notice and the commissioner of police to inspect. Now, it doesn't say, as far as I understand, that if that 15 days elapses, what happens? In other words, because, and we have representatives of shipping lines here, the exporter has already organized with the shipping line, with getting the container, and so on, has the buyer internationally lined up to buy. Who is going to pay the economic losses to the exporter if for some reason those timelines are not met by the minister, because the minister has a ton of other things to do, or the minister's representative? Now, the other issue there is there's provision for a member of the public to come and view. 5 days. Now that adds another layer. What happens if somebody comes in and then makes an objection, and the minister then, who is going to take up the economic loss of the exporter who has already booked containers and whatever else on transportation? So this is why I'm suggesting that some of those details may have better been placed in the regulations, where they could have been more easily addressed and amended, rather than embedding them in the parent law, which to be amended requires a bill to be passed by both houses, proclaimed by the president, and so on. And therefore, there are not only delays of time, and therefore some uncertainty with respect to how a business organizes itself to export and so on, and those things are going to increase the cost of doing business for the dealers. And the dealers, therefore, are going to have to factor in that, coming back to the economics now, factor in the additional cost of doing business because of those timelines, which will then work backwards in terms of what they have to pay the collectors, what the collectors will have to pay people who are selling the metals, and so on. And those are the things that we are going to have to think about and try to work through as we go forward. Two other very quick points, and that is because if we want this to be a major industry, it has to be an efficient industry. It has to be efficient. It has to work above the law. In other words, it has to be operating legally. I agree with that 100%. No thieving of manhole cover, people gate, whatever. We're against all of that, and we know that. And Brother Ferguson has categorically said he's against that. So we know that. But it has to operate efficiently. You can't want to have a multi-billion-dollar industry and then hamstring it by so much bureaucracy that it then becomes inefficient. That is not encouraging the private sector to drive the industry forward. I'm also concerned, therefore, about how this is going to work along the entire value chain in terms of cost structures, and that you're going to have to sit down and think about from export, working backwards in terms of your pricing, all the way back to the collector and the person who is selling, the implications for that value chain. I personally found the fine for someone not having a collector's license to be too high, $250,000 for not having a collector's license. I find that is very, very high, but that's what the Parliament passed. I just find that to be high. What I hope this does not result in is a frustration of smaller dealers and also collectors, that the administrative and bureaucratic arrangements have not become too onerous so that it frustrates the smaller dealers who may not have the administrative resources to make sure all of their records are properly kept, etc., etc., etc. And my concern and fear is that what we are going to see over a period of time is the establishment of vertically, it's an economic term, vertically organized firms. In other words, a large firm that has a fleet of collectors with their own transport people, and they therefore operate as a single firm from collection to export. And you don't now have what we have existing of a separated type of arrangement with multiple collectors, small people with a van who went to the bank or credit union, borrow some money, get a 3-ton, and moving about collecting and then selling to a licensed dealer who is exporting. And therefore, if that breaks down because of the challenges of the law, we are going to cause exclusion economically and socially in the country. And a few people will then have a firm, vertically organized, with collectors and their own vans. So you see a fleet of Company X, not mine, Company X, and they have 10, 20 collectors all over the country because they have the capital resources and the organization and the administration and the bureaucracy to put everything in place in one fell swoop. And that is my concern. But I will continue to stand with the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association and its members and all the members of the industry to defend your industry and to ensure that the benefits of this industry are, in terms of wealth and income, are distributed as fairly and equally in Trinidad and Tobago as possible so that justice will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah. Now, for those few of us who may not know, apart from being a politician and apart from being a trade unionist, Mr. Abdullah is a noted economist. And so when he speaks about the challenges in the law, we must take note. When he speaks about the challenges that the industry could face in complying with the law, we take note. But when he speaks about the potential upside, the benefit to the economy, the foundation of the sustainability that this industry has the potential to become, we must certainly take note. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah. We would know that as we were discussing this morning, we have certain themes that we touched on, and the sustainability is one, the law is one, and then it's how we use technology to assist in those very challenges. And so it is my great pleasure to invite to the podium Miss Tracy Aliong. Now, Miss Tracy Aliong is from RFID Tagging Solutions, and she would speak to us on how or the potential ways that technology can be used in this industry. So please put your hands together for Miss Tracy Aliong.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. To the President and other members of the association, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I bring my greetings from Smart Technical. I have a small presentation today. I would like you all to consider this as the quick tech talk of the day. Hearing all of the conversation so far, it is in various forms, and as great as this change is, as much as it is needed in our society, Mr. Abdullah had pointed out great gaps, and I agree, and I see that too. And technology, my tech talk today is to also, cover some of those gaps and to bring awareness of what exists out there and how we could make life easier for everyone. Before I go further, I would like to congratulate the association on this grand step in going from an unregulated to a regulated industry, because it will affect and have a great effect in all sectors of life. So, personally, being able to track what is happening, what is going on in society, can help everyone to have that record keeping. But going from basically nothing to something, it can be challenging. So we have to all work together to make it a success. So my company, we deal with specifically technology, tracking solutions, tagging solutions, and what I would like to talk about is RFID technology. RFID technology has been around for maybe a century. It's been around since World War II. And this technology has continuously evolved over time. And now it's gone from everyday use to high technology to being used in spacecrafts all over. Simple applications to advanced applications. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what it is. Basically, RFID technology is part of an ecosystem of radio frequency technology. It's wireless communications. You are able to use the technology to monitor, track, and communicate with people, objects, items, whatever you need to track, the technology makes it possible. The system uses a small chip or a tag, and you can use that to store information, which can be read by a suitable scanner. The tags come in different forms. It can be a sticker, it can be a plastic capsule, it can be a metal plate. It comes in whatever form is necessary to fit an application. How the system is designed is basically your tags, your reader, a simple computer with the software, and antennas which are integrated inside of each chip. The system, a tag is not powered. There's no power to a tag. It's just a paper. It's just a microchip. And believe it or not, the technology feeds off of radio waves and powers itself to provide you with access to what is in that chip. It's that advanced. Imagine having a piece of paper, no power, and you bring it close enough to a radio technology or a radio frequency, and it powers itself. What the tagging solution can do is increase accuracy, reduce labor, and give you effective report generation, real-time updates. What these simply mean is, in increased accuracy, you are able to collect information accurately, provide it when you need. Tracking manually is a task. Imagine going in a room with a scanner and you have a whole heap of scrap iron, and you don't know where all of these came from, but each one came from several persons. So having a tag on each one of them with just a scanner, you're able to pull that information and collect it in an instant. Effective report. The new legislation calls for reports. Being able to produce accurate reports when needed on what you have within your scrapyard can be challenging, but being able to have a system that can allow you to give easy report will help you to meet the requirements of the legislation. And that is what we have identified and want to share with you, the way of doing things easily. Real-time updates, being able to account for what quantity of scrap iron you have. Those are the things that the system can be used for. Improve visibility. Again, it's just a simple handheld scanner. You're able to go into a room, a quick scan, and you'll know what you have and account for it. Quick data collection. Being able to read multiple pieces of or sets of material that are tagged. Immediate access to detailed information. RFID tags help provide storage for large amounts of data. So all the data that is being asked of you to store serial number, color, size, weight, all these things can be stored in the chip and then tagged onto your material. Scalability, it's easy to expand based on how big you want. It can be nationwide, it can be individual. And of course, it's a secure network where data is encrypted. You can't read the information as easily as you'd want. You have to have a specific reader. Some of the applications that we use RFID technology for right now is asset tracking and management, inventory management, warehouse management, personnel management, vehicle tracking. It is proven technology, simple, cost-effective, and efficient. Looking at this scrap metal arc, what we can bring to the table is using tags, such as a personal card. So you, as a dealer or a collector, you have your card, which is like an ID. You go into an establishment. If you are a collector, you go into a dealer. You have your card, it's scanned. All your information is read immediately. There's no need for paperwork anymore. This is all automated. Your information is recorded in a timestamp. You can now create a log of what you are passing over to this dealer. The dealer, at any point in time, can now use the software to give records, give details on transactions that has happened, and all this is done with just that scanner he would have. And of course, it can be an integrated network where it is either centralized or decentralized based on what is the requirement. And that's it. So it's just a quick tech talk on how RFID can work to fill some of the gaps or to actually make this new legislation a success or a continued success, because we as human beings, we are a little bit lazy at times, you know, and if we have a system that makes it easier for us to do everything that is listed in, I don't know if it's 38 pages, I can't remember, that 38 pages document, right? By just having a card, by just having a chip, by just having a reader, it will make all of our lives easier. So just bringing technology, marrying it with this new grand step can make it a success. So that's all I had to share today. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out, and I hope the conversations continue to be productive.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aliong. We see how, as an industry, in order to cope with the challenges that we are heading towards, we use all tools available at our disposal, but they are significant, and there are things that we could do to make this easier for everyone, and we could all benefit from a very vibrant scrap metal industry. Now, our next speaker is a man who has been championing the cause for the scrap iron industry for over a decade. He has traveled throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago and across the world representing this industry. And prior to that, in the field of boxing, he is now leading the charge when it comes to transforming the scrap iron industry from an informal sector to a formal sector. He's none other than the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association. Please warmly welcome Mr. Alan Ferguson.
Thank you, thank you. First, I know it was a real struggle for the last 6 months. But before I start off, I want to thank each and every one for taking our invitation to come here today. I want to thank the Crime Stoppers, and each and every single one. I want to thank everybody who is here today. I want you to know that this Alan Ferguson believes there's a God. And the reason why I'm saying that, I will explain to you in my speech why I believe there's a God. I want to thank Nicole, I want to thank the whole organizing crew for organizing this. I want to thank them because all of them put out effort, a lot of effort to make this happen. I want also to thank the people for the last 6 months to help us with food stuff, who help us with books to help our children. I want to thank the people for the last 6 months who help us in all different areas. Because I know this industry had faced it. And when I mean faced it, when somebody take away what you feed your family with, take away what you own as a house. Because when you cannot pay, they take back your house in Trinidad. Because long as you have an installment, a van installment, a car installment, or whatever it might be, it was a struggle for my members. And I want to make it clear. Hold on, brothers and sisters. Hold on. And I'm going to make it very clear to you today. I'm not going to speak no lie. I'm going to tell you the truth. This forum is for the truth. Why is we going to make a lot of changes in this industry, God willing? I would like you all to understand the challenges in done. The challenge for this industry have not done. It went done so. And any leader, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, Buckler, name all the strugglers all over the world who representing and fighting for the poor. They always have to face a struggle in their life, because long as you decided to represent the poor or fight for the poor, you will always have a struggle that you always have to fight. There will be people who won't like you because of how you speak. There will be people who won't like you because who you represent. But who they want to represent? The poor. Who they want to represent? The people who need. Because they won't like you. But I don't care about the people who don't love me, who don't care about me. Long as I pray to my Lord, and I depend on my Lord, that is what it is about. That is what it is about. Praying to your Lord and understanding. Brothers and sisters, because you don't know and I don't have to be talking every single thing, why is I get a forum to talk? But this industry, the kind of challenges I have to face to able to try to get it back on track, it's like the people don't even care about the poor. They don't care about the needy, because not every single people in this industry have rich, could handle the situation. There's some, there's a handful. And once I have to face it, and I have to come here to talk, I have to come here to talk about what we're going to do for the industry, how we want it to change. I have to talk the truth. This industry faces challenges that y'all will never understand, because it is in all different angles. The challenges is coming. There's all kind of way they're coming at us. Because I don't know, they look at what will be taking place in this industry, and they recognize that they want to take it from us. And it's because of my resistance. They didn't take it. But you believe the shutdown was not to take it, you will know. But I could tell you, because I had the information. But I don't want to stick with that today. All I want to tell you today, I want to still thank somebody. I want to thank. I know you don't want me to talk about it, you know. But I have to talk. There's a gentleman that called me and tell me he wants to help in removing the stigma and helping in the new way how we take this industry and put it in the world market as a strong industry and put in different organizations and different companies together to make it a strong organization. Today, I want to announce that Mr. Sadiq Bash, it will be the person to take this industry and help the association to take it in a different level. Today, Mr. Sadiq Bash, I am announcing as the president of the association, he will assist me and our members to take this organization and put it in a different light and different way that people will understand that the scrap industry all over the world represent plenty. The scrap industry represents big. The scrap industry represents thousands of workers. The scrap industry represents thousands of foreign exchange coming to Trinidad. And this is what I am asking. I ask him, please take and help us to take this industry to a different level. So I want to thank him because he made a lot of effort to have this to happen here today. And all the people who are watching all over the world, because I receive messages that people will be watching all over and monitoring what's taking place in Trinidad in this scrap industry. Brothers and sisters, I need to talk the truth because it's the truth will make this industry change. One of the greatest problems for this industry is we, the people who make up the industry. I don't want to talk about the government now. I want to talk about us, because the government will make laws and always do things to benefit who they want to benefit. But we is our greatest enemy, the people who make up the industry. Y'all didn't want me to talk about that, eh? Y'all want to tell me about, hey, what we doing and what we going to do, but I have to talk the truth. The people who export, I came to you in the early stages, and I tell you, please do not buy copper from TSTT. I went all over Trinidad and Tobago. You cannot tell me I didn't come all over telling y'all not to buy copper, because sufferers don't care what they do. If you buy from the sufferers, they will go and pull it out from on top of the line. They will do it because they need money to feed the family. Why is I not agreeing with them going and do it and stealing to get something? You know how we is in Trinidad and Tobago. If you as the head do not do it, they will not go and steal nothing. They will not go and steal nothing. If you encourage them, because if you wasn't buying it, they will not be stealing it. And you don't want me to come here today and talk that. You don't want me to come and talk it. But I am saying, I am telling you, we need to change. We need to stop it. We need to change this industry in such a way that people will respect us. The government will respect us. They will watch us as pipers and hustlers and thieves and bandits. They will watch us as people who change in their life to be good businessmen. Because that's what we want for this industry. To every single person who involved to be more professional in the industry. Every single person I am begging, I am asking you today, let us make a change in the industry. Let us take it from what we have it now and put it in a different level. I will be going to all different communities in Trinidad where we're doing scrap and let them understand that scrap is a serious issue. And why we have we name as scrap dealers, we're going to change. We will change. We will call it recyclers, because not what we want to do now to able to move all this waste from Trinidad and Tobago, because we is one of the #1 country in waste, and we want to deal in your old clothes, your plastic, your paper, your oil, every single thing this industry is going into now. Because we is inviting other organizations and other recyclers to join us. Whilst we take this industry from a different level and take it in a different format that people will understand. Stop as we go along buying scrap iron, buying battery, we're going to be buying old clothes, buying every recycling material as we go along. Because for we to get respect, we have to change, you know. We cannot want people to respect us. We cannot want people to understand us unless we make change. Because from a little boy, you have to from a little child, you come a little boy, and then you come a big man. You don't just get big just so. So we as the association, we intend to make some changes also. We will not allow the government to dominate everything for us. We have to make changes. And let me tell people something. It has some people in the industry, it has some people in government, it has some people in Trinidad. I'm going to tell you something. I must mention this, and I want everybody to listen to this good. It just happened about 3 weeks ago. There's this man. He was renting from a man. He was renting, and he was owing rent. And the landlord tell him, you have to get out. You have to go out because you can't pay. So the man had to take his thing and he had to go in a tent. He had to go in a tent. And why he had to go in a tent? Because he had no money to pay for nothing. He had to go in a tent. And you know something? 3 weeks after, the same man that put out this man end up in the same tent with the man. You want to know how he ended up in the same tent with the man? And you want to show you God's power? It had an earthquake and it sank, and some people end up in that same tent. So sometimes, don't matter how big he is, don't matter how powerful he is, don't matter if you feel because you have money, God does whatever he chooses to do to destroy some people sometimes. And not because it's a poor people and people who are struggling, and because you don't care about them, you feel you could do it where you want. Look at what happened today. All you notice? Let me tell you what happened today. And if I tell you that they don't care about all you, I say they don't care about me. And it's not because of me, you know. It's because they feel all these thugs, and they feel all these criminals, and they tell me why I must represent all you. Because it's so much wrong all they do. And I have to continue telling them, listen to me, if nobody in help represent all you to tell all you, if all you're doing something wrong, we have to stop. Somebody need to talk. Somebody need to be the leader of the poor. Somebody need to be the leader of the people who cannot help themselves. And if I choose to do it, and I choose to get blamed because of what I represent, because I don't need to do it. I have enough, my head is enough. They don't care about all your brothers, and they don't care about sisters, they don't care about me. And I'll tell you why. This industry is the industry in the Ministry of Trade in charge of this industry. We invite them. We invite them. Whatever claim they make, they can't come. I don't want to go into it. Whatever claim they make, they don't want to see about us. They don't want to come here and represent us. They don't want to talk about with us. They want to talk with some of the big yards, some of me. They want to talk to me and the big yards. They don't want to talk to all you. They're afraid to answer questions from all you. because they think all these thugs and all these good people, because they feel in we industry only have bad people, but we industry have good people, loving people. They don't care about all your ministry, the Attorney General office. They can't come, plenty things doing, plenty things. Every single person in the ministry, in the Attorney General today, busy. Nobody was able to come because they're busy. That's the remarks to me. They're busy. I am telling all you, if I ask for a meeting, I will get it, you know. So it's not me afraid. It's all you. It's all you. So that is why we have to fix our business now. We have to understand that we have to change our program. We have to change it from doing wrong to doing good. Because don't tell me we ain't do wrong. Because all the people that were stealing the copper, it wasn't just people alone who just running into the industry, just so you know, majority. But there was some of us thieving copper too. And I can't come here and say nobody from our organization wasn't thieving copper. I would be a liar. And I'm not a liar. So what I'm saying is that we need to change. We need to change. We have a lot of things that we need to organize. We now could go into the bank and we will be talking to a lot of different organizations. Now we could go to the bank and get loan and able to do business good. So let me organize and do the thing right. If they catch us stealing, we will lose the license. So we have to understand if you're a collector and you go and you mash up your record by getting locked up and convicted, you've been able to run your industry. You've been able to go and collect. And if there's a scrapyard, if there's also a scrapyard and you want to buy one set of stolen stuff, the police could be coming. Trust me, I tell you they're coming. Because the next plan is to set me up. You hear what I just say? The next plan is to set me up. Because the kind of thing they put in that policy, trust me, if we don't take care, and that is why we said, all you please, do not start to buy no material as yet. Because I understand is that we will run into a lot of problems. And if you watch what's going on, they don't care. And I ain't saying it in a way nice, you know. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. And I am saying we need to make change. We need to do good. And what we will do, as we say now, we will try as the association to try to meet with different communities and different scrapyards and different. It has some people who feel that they're big, they're big, they're real big. And they don't care because some of them, it's sad to say, some of them are racial. Some of them don't like me. But I still representing you, and I still love you, and I still care about you. You know why I have to do that? Because I take up a position to represent everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. So I will love you still, and I will still represent you. So we will have to make changes. We will have to talk to the people who want to make change. I know everybody in the organization don't like change. It's that some people will want to continue what they're doing. Some people will want to continue. I am saying to all of y'all, change is a universal thing. Changes bring growth. Changes bring success. Changes bring love. Because sometimes people see you, and because you change to be a better person, a human being, people love you more. So we need to do that. And I can't stay here today and say that everything was all right with me. Everything wasn't all right. We need to fix our problem also too. But I'm going to give the government a message today. I am not a politician. I have politician friends, and they're good. They have in all different parties. Probably I must have friends. And I love them because they're good, honest people that I just deal with. But let me tell you something. When I say that all the whole of us, let me tell you something. Since the shutdown, not one food card we get. Since the shutdown, not one public assistance one of my members get. Since they shut down, you and have the guts as a government to help none of my members. And I have to say that you good. We have all these resources in Trinidad and Tobago, and it belongs to everybody in Trinidad. It don't belong to one set of people. And my members are suffering. I was crying. I was bawling for my members. And you never come out and help us. And I have to say no, that you good. I cannot say you good. I have to say you bad and you don't care about us. And I want Trinidad and the world to know that this government didn't care about us. Because if you care about us, you better do more for us. Not only make legislation, not only open back the industry after 6 months. You take away what we had. You take away our livelihood. You take away what we was feeding our family with. You take away what we was paying our rent with. You take everything away from us. And nothing one day help us. And you want me to say that you love it? I have to be mad. And if you feel, because you appear them and they help you, they didn't help my members, I'm sure about it. People come by me crying. People call me crying. And you know what I had to do? I had to push out what I have. I turned poor because I had to help you. And you want me to say that you go, look what happened today. Look what we're going, we're doing something good for the industry. And none of them had the guts to come here. And I had to say they're good. I'm not no politician, I don't hate them. 90% of my family is PNM. I don't have no hate for nobody. I love human beings. I care about people. I care about people so much that I just give it what I have. So nobody can praise me in that. But I am saying, I as a leader, I have to tell the world on Trinidad and Tobago that this government, I don't care what they do again, because there's nothing again they could do to destroy me. As a leader, I expect them to come and take me anytime and lock me up. I expect that. I have done already tell my people, I done already tell my lawyers, anytime they will lock me up for nothing. They do leaders all over the world that they will try to set you up. Because as long as you see you coming somewhere, as long as you talking to poor people, as long as you representing poor people, as long as you representing more than 25,000 poor people, you know what is that? That is disaster for me. Because I talking, and some of the members just tell me don't talk. But if I wasn't talking, they would have done slipping the people who they was slipping already. And it's because I talking. Because I talking, they're doing what they're doing. So I am saying, I want us, and this is my final speech for today, I want us as an organization to forget the past. Let us move forward. Let us work with one another. We will set up a group with the scrapyards, all the scrapyards, to make sure that if anybody come into our yards with any stolen material, flag it on the group. From tomorrow, I will make the WhatsApp group with all scrapyards. If you don't like this one, that's your business. If you want to come out of the group, that's your business. I will put all scrapyards in a group. And any person coming, anybody coming in our yard to sell stolen stuff, we must flag it out on the group. Anybody who we feel that means bad for this industry, we must flag it out on the group. Anybody who want to export copper, we must flag it up. KST copper, we must flag it out. Anybody who see the comment stealing manhole cover, we must flag it out and let everybody know who steal manhole cover. Anybody who wish bad for this industry, flag it out. Everything. Because we want, as an organization, and we have people who come in to help us. We can't want people coming to help us and we don't showing gratitude. We're not showing that we want to make change. We're not showing that this industry, you could be honest and get an honest dollar when the day come. You could do it. We could do it. We have the abilities. We take our industry from nothing and bring it to something. So we could do it. We could take this. When I now came president, this industry wasn't like how it was. So we could make better for this industry. And if you don't know, I'm going to tell each and everyone in Singapore, when we last went to Singapore, they say that we here in Trinidad shall be the leaders in the region. If you all don't know that, I'm telling you all now. I am talking about recyclers from all different countries in the world. When we went, they tell us, we here in Trinidad shall be the #1 in the world, in this region, and not Caribbean, you know, in the region. So if you don't know, we understand the business. And we have to understand that we must be respectable. We must be respectable to one another. If you don't like a man, even if you don't like what he does, even if you don't like how I just talk, even if you feel that I could talk better, but you have to understand, I just speak a language that the normal people understanding. I go say lie. You might say a story. I will say a thief. You will have a better language for it. I will say, aha, aha. You want me to say, aha, and nice words? Well, I'm talking rutical for them because majority of the people in our industry is the real people down on the ground. And we need to talk a language that they will understand. So that is how I just speak. I could try to change that, but we have to change. We have to change the industry first, and then look for a change for me. Don't look for a change for me when I representing poor people. And you, because you have money and you're in the industry, you don't care about the poor people. Because you have money and because you have a big yard, you don't care about the poor people. And the same poor people who bring in material for you each and every day. And this is why I represent. And then the next thing, all van men, I want you all to know this. We need to organize too. We, as the association, hear what we say. Y'all, if y'all don't want to take part in it, I am saying the people who want to get the representative of the association, everyone needs to have the stick on the vehicle. And you have to have your stick on your vehicle because we will be telling the public, don't deal with you. And you will tell them it will have the Crime Stoppers number on the sticker also now. And we will want to be able to let you all understand that I, as the association, as the members of the association, you know what we're going to do for you all? Because there are some of them who punish. And all of that has to change. Don't give all the full price. I am saying we, as the association, we will put out a price now for van men. And I ain't talking about the underprice, I'm talking about the full price that all you're supposed to get. So when all you know, all you could monitor the association page, monitor all these things, these are the things that we're doing for you. Scrapyards, we will be doing all kinds of things to make sure that you get help, that you're supposed to get help. Everybody in the organization, we will try to make changes in the organization. So I am saying it's change and there's betterment for everybody who is involved in the organization. Not one, not two, but every single people involved in the organization will get assistance and help because we decided that we will make some move because we joining up with some people and some organization that we could help. And long as you want to move forward with your business, we will organize with you. Long as you deserve it, we will talk to the people who want to help. Because you see this thing that this front and man doing all kind of things to you and telling you all kind of things. We want to make this a change. We will be trying to make help for you financially, that you could be able to buy your material without this set of upfront, and you're seeing where you're spending your money. All of this is going to be changed. And I am telling you, I have done started talking with people already. And the final message to everyone. There are some people, I know some of them don't want me to mention that. Let me do the thing right now. Let me make sure that we scale good now. Let me make sure that we scale good. Let me make sure that when you're an exporter and you're sending material to the port, let me make sure that you're out of the port booth and you're not inside, you're not in the port trying to make changes to the containers that come into the port. All of us are going to all the port managers. And I will have a talk with them for the final time because I did have a talk with them. Because all of this is robbery. And you know what I'm talking about. And you know you don't like it, but it's not fair for people who know organizing and you're taking away. Every time you send a container to the port, it's 3 and 4 ton gone. And you know where it's going. All of this must make change. Honesty must be in the industry. Honesty is serious. Honesty must be with me, and it must be with you too. So I thank you, and I'm telling you all, I will never give up. I will never give up fighting for you all. I don't care who vexed. I don't care who vexed, because all leaders, all good leaders had people who don't like them. All good leaders never had anybody who liked them. Jesus, Moses, name them, Malcolm X, Mahatma Gandhi, always have people who don't like them. And I will fight for you all. I will struggle for you all. I will stay strong all. And thanks me.
I think Mr. Ferguson deserves another round of applause. And we all thank him for that heartfelt and emotional speech, and for all the tireless dedication he has devoted to this industry over the many years. We are all better off with you here, Mr. Ferguson. I would like now to break for lunch, but I would let you all know that right after lunch, we will be continuing with our panel discussion. And at that point, you would have the opportunity to hear from the panel members and to give your questions and comments on the floor microphones, right? So we are going to break for just about, let's say we were supposed to say 45 minutes. Let's say we aim to be back here at 1:30. We have lunch prepared for everyone upstairs, and there's also coffee and other pastries available downstairs, but we have lunch prepared upstairs for you all. And our team would be on hand for our specially invited guests and the head table to escort you all up for lunch. So please enjoy the break, and we convene promptly at 1:30. Thank you all so very much.